Hello, welcome to Radio Shipwrecked. This is a very special episode. It's the first of 3 deep dives into the masterpiece that is Gintis's 2022 album, Hope Is All We Have. I'm joined by the wonderful Dr. Carl Roberts as he takes us on a guided tour of the 12 songs that make up a triumphant return for the multi-limbed band. So we're going to start this episode by jumping into the first 4 tracks off the album. This is very much about the influences that went into the melting pot that make up this fantastic album. There's a wonderful story behind the making and the germination of the album, but that will be saved for another time, which we'll tell you all about in a bit. So without further ado, hello, Carl.
Hello, mate. So normally you introduce me as the Abergele Wanderer.
But you're our Abergele tour guide today, so we're all wandering behind you.
Cheers, mate. How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Bit of a chesty. So if anyone detects the gruffness in my voice, it's not because I was out all night. I'm a bit under the weather, but otherwise, very, very glad to be here.
And this is your second radio show of the day?
I'm nothing if not on a pro. Yeah. Although the first radio show was anything but professional, but that's another talk for another time. So, Carl, I'm made up to be doing this. We've been wanting to do this for a very long time. Hope Is All We Have then. So it came out last year on May 68 Records. And there's a bit of a long story behind its birth and its creation, which we're going to go into in another time. But first and foremost, how did this album come together? Because I'm aware there was a long gap between Gintis albums, kind of dotted with single releases in between, weren't there?
Yeah. Essentially that the second album that we did, Idiot Guides and Plans, came out in 2011, and then we were all kind of living in different cities at that point. Most of us had moved away from the Abergele area to go to university and things like that. So, but we all kind of would get together at, we'd all like get together and go for like a long weekend at one of our houses, whether it be like Kyle's house in Bangor, or Joe lived in Manchester at the time and I lived here. And we'd keep writing, but they just came kind of like, a lot more sporadic. And we all also all had other bands in that period as well. So Joe had a band in Manchester, Kyle had a band in Bangor. I had a band called the Wobbly Hearts, which the rest of them were actually still back in Abergele. But and that was it. So things we just kind of really slowed down. We'd never split up, but we kind of just had a long period of hiatuses. And then it was in 2017 when we did the first single off this album, which was Dennis and Oh My Little Malcontent, that we basically started to make plans for making an album. So that basically started with getting a grant from Horizons, a Welsh grant, which we were helped out with the application by Andy from Pop to Ping recording company, because basically Bill Ryder Jones had met him and said if he releases Gintis that he'll record us, and that basically sparked that. So
right, so that's right. Okay, because the whole so are all things on this produced by Bill?
Yes, the album's produced by Bill at Yawn. I think that session that we did for Dennis and Malcontent we were actually the first band to record in Yawn. Yeah.
So you christened Yawn?
Yeah. Other than Bill recording himself.
Yeah.
We were the first band.
Oh, fantastic. So this wasn't as such like a comeback album in the sense that the band had disbanded and, come on, let's all get the group back together. It was more a period of inactivity as opposed to...
Yeah, exactly. We just take our time over things, that's all.
Well, yeah.
And it's one of them. I think that, we don't have the privilege of being able to be a professional band. So it's just kind of one of them where we just do it as and when, and because we all lived away from each other, then it gets harder and harder as you get older, doesn't it? But that's it really. Yeah.
Okay. So
but we knew we knew we had like a bunch of really great songs, so we were determined to make it, yeah.
So that was kind of going to be leading into my next question. And so, how did these songs come about? Were they all knocking about with these various projects? Was it, or were they always earmarked for the Gintis album, or was it a case of pulling them together and going, actually, this could make a good album?
It's a really good question. So obviously there's a few of us write songs, so largely most of the songs are written by myself, Joe and Kyle. Often Joe writes songs for his own outfit called Tellyfair, which he kind of started writing songs for and just recording every instrument himself at home around about the same time as our first album came out. And what he does is he records a bunch of songs, makes an album, will burn like 5 CDs, give it to his friends, and then he'll move on to his next album. And he doesn't care about putting it anywhere or doing anything with it. And so I will listen. They're all really great, and I often will listen to those albums that he makes, and then pinch songs off them, or say like, "Oh, that'd be really good for Gintis. Can I just rewrite the lyrics, or make it less weird and make it more like Gintis?" And he's generally pretty easygoing about these things. So which I think probably brings us quite nicely to the first song on the album. So the first song on the album is "We Had Plans."
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite funny because I haven't heard the original version of this song. Was Joe had made it all himself as a Tellyfair release,
right?
About 15 years ago. And I kind of was reminded by because I really, really loved it, and I said, like, I really, really loved particularly the chorus and wanted to use it. And I said, is it all right if we use that and kind of change things a little bit, move things around a little bit? And I was reminded by my friend Ted recently that he was like, because he was a huge fan of Tellyfair. Ted, the originator of the podcast, in fact, in about 2008, called Cloud Sounds. He reminded me, I went for beers with him last summer, and he reminded me that he was like, "Oh, it's mad that We Had Plans was originally about a boy who had a ship. He was on a ship that crashed and ended up living under the sea, isn't it? And that's what it's about." And I was like, and it had been so long since I'd listened to the song and so used to our version on the album that I was just like, was it? And then I've subsequently like re-listened to it, and then spoke to Joe as well this evening saying, what was it about it initially? A boy that lived under the sea? And he was like, well, kind of, yeah. He was like, because there's a lyric in that goes, everything is cold down here and everything is old down here, and everything that I held dear is left above me. We went down in 92. The raging beast took our whole crew. They're all lost, but I'm still in the blue. And he talks about,
wow.
So it's about, and then he said, so I was like, oh, right, yeah. So, so it was about a shipwreck. And he was like, yeah, I think so. But then he was just frozen under the sea. I think I've been watching AI, and they had a scene where he was stuck at the bottom of a swimming pool for years. So I think that's largely what it is.
Right.
But the thing is that, so in that version where he sings, I'll never see sky, I'll never be dry, I'll never.
Yeah.
Is literally about living under the sea, whereas our version is a bit, I always think, is about I'll never be dry, as in like I'm drinking all the time to deal with like a loss. And when I kind of took the song, it really reminded me of a professor that used to be my mentor, who had lost his wife when he was around my age, and it just really reminded me of him. So I kind of took it and kind of wrote it, and I was going to call it The Professor originally, actually, but thought it sounded too much like The Scientist by Coldplay. And then the second verse, I kind of changed some of the words to reference things off our first album. So like We Had Guides,
I was going to
Guides
ask
and
that.
Plans. So that's like
Yeah,
a
yeah,
reference to the
yeah.
last album, Idiot Guides and Plans, and it kind of ties it all into the Guinness thing. So
So it was originally
um,
a very different beast then.
yeah, well, I'll play it. Shall I play it
Yeah,
and hear it
let's
for
dive into it.
yourself?
So this is Telefair with
Yeah,
We Have, was it called We Have Plans?
it was called We Had Plans.
Right,
Yeah,
okay, yeah,
the
yeah.
original version.
Fantastic. Oh, he's good, isn't he?
It's great, isn't
That's
it?
fantastic. So that's Joe, the current keyboard player. Although to get
Yes.
into who's played what in Gintis over the years is a separate podcast, isn't it? But
Yeah.
he's the
Yeah.
current. So that's the original version of We Have Plans by Telefair. That's blown me. It's like when you get into something like Bob Dylan's bootleg series and a song you've known so well for so long, you hear this radically different. Like there's elements of kind of snippets of that sounds familiar, but there was so many different verses that was absolutely fantastic. So
Yeah. And like,
you
sorry.
took that and thought, right, there's something in that I want to make Gintis.
Yeah, so I guess I kind of yeah, I just thought it was really beautiful, and then kind of thought if I just wanted it to be a really because it was I was particularly in love with the chorus, which is basically what the Guinness
Yeah.
song is. It's just like the chorus basically twice, really. But I kind of tried to just kind of make it more Gintis, really. But he, you know, that he recorded that like about 15 years ago, and that same album that he made, Buildings, as well, is which we'll come to in I guess the next version of this podcast.
Yeah.
So I'll have to play the original version of that as well in the next one as well. But that was also on that, and that's an awful lot different actually. But so I kind of he's constantly writing, and then I guess I don't know. I feel quite lucky really that I can just go. Can I have that, mate? Do you mind if I sing it?
Yeah. So what was it? What was it about it that made you want to open the album? Because it's quite an understated opening, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think that brings me nicely onto the next song that I was going to play as an influence song on that song. So I kind of I think it's a really nice kind of way to kind of lull you into the album. But what I had in my head was always this song by the Earlies. I don't know if you remember the band, the Earlies.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, the album, these were the Earlies.
These were the Earlies, yeah. Manchester and Texas based, bizarrely.
Yeah.
So if I thought it was difficult us getting together when we lived in Manchester and Liverpool, then God knows how difficult it was for them guys. But yeah, there's a song called Wayward Song by the Earlies, and it's got all these similar. I mean, you'll hear it. I think I listened to it earlier when I was picking through songs for influences, and it's like, it's so obvious now.
Right, yeah.
You hear it, but it's such an influence on it, because it's like little things like the cello on it, and there's cello parts and kind of bits and bobs. Oh, the cello on the Gintis album, by the way, was played by Joe's dad.
Was it?
Yeah, not the cello. Sorry, the what's it called?
Oboe.
What's the instrument?
Carl's Jester and
one of them.
Looks like an oboe. Clarinet. There we go.
Clarinet.
Right.
Sorry, not cello. Take all that back. Clarinet. So the clarinet on the Wayward Song by the Earlies. So we got Joe's dad to record clarinet because he can play clarinet. And you'll hear it and you'll see and you'll go like, oh. Yeah, obvious touchstone there.
So we'll play that, and then because there's a lot I was playing it earlier today, and with We Have Plans, there's a lot more going on than initially. Because it sounds quite sparse, but the more I was listening, there was quite a lot going on, quite subtly.
So that was basically the idea, and that I think came from this early song. Really. Right. So We Had Plans is an incredibly simple song. It's 2 chords all the way through.
Yeah.
But with these kind of little textures, little keyboards, clarinets, little other bits of piano going on, then it becomes, it becomes more of a like an ambient kind of thing, really.
Yeah. Fantastic. So we're going to play Wayward Song by the Earlies that went into We Have Plans.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Don't worry about everything you see. There's a time, a place. I could trace the hues upon your face. Wayward son, you lost your head again. Think of all the words you could have said. road's not fit for a kid who ain't ready to see it yet. It's alright to let yourself down again tonight. Let go. Release. Won't you help me set my mind at ease? There's a will, a way. I know it's getting dark now, but it's okay. This time understand that this lonely, tired bird don't know how to land. Wayward son, you've lost your head again. Think of all the words you could have said. The road's not fit for a kid who ain't ready to see it yet. It's alright to let yourself down again tonight. Hey there, son, you've gotta carry on. Take a load off your weary head. The road's not fit for a kid who ain't ready to see it yet. It's alright to let yourself down again tonight. In this life we love who we can, then they're gone, then they're gone. But what will be and what has been will be again. was waiting for the seeds to fall. I saw your mother there. She was fair and tall. There was something in the air that night. I walked to your house. There I turned her down. We sat talking till the morning came. She smoked a cigarette and I held my tongue. Picture you beside your fire, waiting for the cats to come down, and thinking of your mother. Hanging on to things will only hurt. Hanging on to me will only your heart. Hanging on to things will only your heart. Hanging on to me will only your heart. Hanging on to things will only your heart. Hanging on to me will only your heart. Hanging on to things will only your heart. Hanging on to me will only your heart.
So that was Wayward Song by the Earlies from their wonderful These Were the Earlies album. It's a bit of a lost classic, that album. And then after it, we played, kind of fittingly enough, Hanging Song by Bill Ryder Jones. Carl, do you want to say just a few words about why Hanging Song kind of went in there?
Yeah, just because I think that album by Bill Ryder Jones, obviously he recorded it, and he recorded our album and played a bunch on, played with various instruments and recorded some backing vocals on this album as well. But the reason is that album, A Bad Wind Blows My Heart, when that came out in about 2011, I think that's the only album I listened to for about 6 months. I listened to it like a couple of times a day. I remember just walking around. I was kind of like heartbroken at the time, just walking and listening to that. And now every time I hear the opening bars of that song, I can feel how I felt then, and it lulls me in. And I kind of thought, with We Had Plans, I kind of thought, if you have an album that can just immediately make you feel that you know what's coming, then that was kind of like the goal with that. And I think that Hanging Song by Bill Ryder Jones is such a perfect opening song to an album.
Fantastic. It's a wonderful album. So that's 3 tracks that went into We Have Plans, including the original version of We Have Plans. So that fantastic. So the next track on the album, which I think might have been the first Gintis track I heard, is Oh My Little Malcontent. Now I've got a feeling Nick Power of the Coral was singing this song's praises on Twitter. I think it was this that drew me in. I think it was this released on Pop T Ping.
It was, yeah. It was
the
double A side with Dennis, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was Nick Power of the Coral who was raving about it on Twitter, and and it was. I've never looked back.
Nice. I didn't know that, but I do remember sending it him ages and ages ago, and I think that he's a bit like me. I think he's like a proper lyrics guy, and I remember him talking about. I remember him saying to me, "Cynicism ain't the same as wisdom," and saying that's a great lyric. And I remember saying back to him, "I knew that was the one that you would pick up on." So,
well, I was going to highlight that lyric. That is an absolutely wonderful lyric. That, yeah. So musically, then talk about the tracks that are going into this, because this is a different track, isn't it?
I've got 2 songs. So the first one I'm going to play here is called Radiate, and it's by a band called The Lungs from St. Helens. An absolutely brilliant band who kind of, around the time of our first and second album in the kind of like 2000, late 2000s up to like 2011, 2012, we would basically be their support band. Every gig that they played, we would support them, and they kind of became older brothers to us and took us under their wings, and they were absolutely superb. They were this amazing, great harmonies, Beach Boys-esque pop band. Subsequently, now Gaz, our drummer, is the drummer in The Lungs. So we ended up saying, "Will you join us as well?" But this song was actually on their 3rd album, called Shortcuts, and I love the songwriting in this song, and you'll notice that he sings I love your bones, and there's a lyric in Malcontent, Oh My Little Malcontent, I love your bones, and I stole that wholesale from The Lungs, and it is such a wonderful love song that I just quite like it.
So this is Lungs, Loung, isn't it? It's
Loung, yeah.
Smashing.
Like,
so this
like young.
Smashing. So this is Radiate by The Lungs.
Love her grown with, love her grown with, as we vanished in the rains that came, and then exploded in a golden haze. Love her grown. Blossomed in the storm you faced. All I needed was the love you radiate. I love your bones, kid. When you're not around, it's a dull, miserable place. Some
Well, that was absolutely fantastic. That I've never heard that, and wow, I'm a bit gobsmacked, to be honest. It was they cram a lot into that, don't they?
Yeah, one of the greatest bands of all time.
Yeah,
Absolutely incredible, and did so much for us. Kind of getting us our first taste of really playing outside of North Wales with them, because we used to play in like
Okay.
Manchester and stuff with them.
Right.
And they just really looked after us, and would always invite us to play with them, and we just loved them.
Yeah,
Just the songwriting's just incredible.
I can hear a lot of Hope Is All We Have in that track, in the sense that cramming a lot in, especially this track and the next one, Oh My Little Malcontent and Dennis. There's not a second wasted. Is there? There's no kind of just chucking as a songwriter myself, I'm guilty sometimes of just repeating a verse. There's none of that with Gintis, is there? It's every time you think you've got it sussed, there's a left turn. So that was Lungs with Radiate. That was brilliant. So this next track's another one I'm not familiar with, Carl. So this is another influence for Oh My Little Malcontent.
I don't think. I'll be very, very surprised if anybody's heard of this. So this is a song called Starhanger by state-sponsored Jukebox. Now, state-sponsored you can't. This isn't even online anywhere now. So,
Nice.
State-sponsored Jukebox is the work of Steve Swindon and Ben Clay from Flotation Toy Warning.
Okay.
And Steve Swindon produced the first Gintis EP and the first two Gintis albums.
Right.
And the first Gintis album was released on his own label, which was called Hidden Hive, which he also self-released his own album, the state-sponsored Jukebox album. Now, there's actually there's a few references to Steve and to the work that he does at Tape, which is where we recorded our first two albums, which is a community arts centre in North Wales, so that people in kind of a poor area of the world can access the arts, and anyone can go there and they will realise their vision, whether it's film or music. And we became really close friends with Steve, and he really helped us a lot as well. But this song, the reason that it's in here is because there's a lyric in My Little Malcontent in the second verse where I sing, he hangs the stars out and locks the curse in the cage. And he hangs the stars out is a reference to the Starhanger in this song by state-sponsored Jukebox. So I'm going to play it now.
Fantastic.
Burn in your car, you
That was Star Hanger by State Sponsored Jukebox, which that's a fantastic band name more than anything. So there some tracks that went into Oh My Little Malcontent, which was it a double A side with the next track, Dennis? Was it?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, so that was put out by Popty Ping.
Yeah.
And so the next track, which is the other side to that, is Dennis. So on this note then, Carl, because obviously We Have Plans was a bit different because it was a Joe song. In terms of the songwriting then, so who's kind of assigned what? I'm presuming, are you the lyricist predominantly?
Yeah, kind of. I think largely it's always generally worked that whoever writes the song sings the song.
Right.
But, on this album, obviously I sing all the songs, apart from the last song, which Kyle wrote and sang. So it's worked a bit differently in that there's a few that Joe wrote that I've kind of reimagined.
Yeah.
And then there's one so We Had Plans, Buildings, and Operations are all Joe songs.
Right.
And then You're the One I'm Keen On started the beginning bit on the piano is Joe, and then I wrote the kind of Gorky's kind of bit at the end. We should probably talk about in one of the other ones, but
So what about Dennis then? Because that's you're straight into it with the vocal line, aren't you? Where did that come from?
Well, actually, it's quite funny actually, and I wasn't thinking about this when I picked. So the next song I'm going to pick is "The Crystal Lake" by Grandaddy. It's actually an unplanned and quite a neat segue, because that opening, I hadn't even thought about this until you just said it, but that opening lyric where I sing Dennis done and seen the light, originally was Dennis dumb and seen the light.
Right.
Because there's a song on the Software Slump by Grandaddy called "He's Simple, He's Dumb, He's the Pilot," and I was going Dennis dumb and seen the light, but I thought it sounded a bit mean, so so I changed it to saying Dennis done and seen the light.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, Dennis is quite a weird song, really, in that nothing really means an awful lot. It's just kind of a hodgepodge of weird. It's like a pastiche of weird stuff.
Wow,
until kind of towards the end, where, well, first of all, there's the bit, you know, "Are you ready for the big time, Joey boy?" So that came. So I'd had like the first. I'd had all of the song up until that point mapped out, and we were rehearsing in Joe's parents' house, bizarrely enough, getting all of us up there in their attic, so I had, you know, the majority of the song written, and then it just kind of turns on its head then and goes into this chuggy kind of "Are you ready for the big time?" That came about because that was just a joke. We were just, where should we go now? And we just started going jing jing, and then I just started going, "Are you ready?" And we were just like, "Oh, this is really good. This sounds, you know," it was like, "This is really good. This could be a hit." And then I was like, "Are you ready for the big time?" And then that's just how that came about.
Oh, fantastic.
Joe naturally going like, "I don't think I'm ready for the big time."
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, and then obviously the end of that song is probably the only bit that was about anything that was real, which was, you know, "All the Rain in Manchester," because Joe lived in Manchester at the time, and it's like, that's, you know, "I told you so, I told you, Joe," and that was, he was having when he was living in Manchester, and he was a bit down, and I kind of wrote that for him, but that was kind of just a segment of a song that we shoehorned on the end, really, and made it, you know, it wasn't like it was written as one piece. It's kind of like the first half of it was written, and then the "Are you ready for the big time" came from jamming, and then the end bit came when we were recording, really, which was, "Oh, I've got this other half a song that we should just put on the end of it." But actually that
kind of feels like, I mean this in a good way, it feels like kind of Hope Is All We Have generally, this absolute mishmash of everything thrown together, but it works in the sense that there's a something tying it all together, and you're not quite sure what, but it all ties together. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I know exactly what you mean, because this is how I tend to write songs.
Right.
I write half songs, and then I kind of get a bit like, "Oh, that's really good," but I don't know where to go. And then basically I'll just kind of stick another half a song onto it and be like, oh yeah, that's in the same key, so that'll put together. And that's actually an incredible amount of songs that are like that all throughout Gintis, because I don't really tend to write an entire song in one sitting. I tend to put 3 half songs together.
Which actually is probably, looking at the artwork, probably reflects that. A collage. So, okay, so sound. So we're going to play The Crystal Lake by Grandaddy, and then we're going to play another track after that?
Yeah, and then Shady Lane by Pavement. So these two are basically, I think that Dennis is I think it's quite a typical Gintis song, really.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it is. You could argue that it encapsulates our sound probably the most.
Do you know what? I thought that only this afternoon. I was playing the album, and 2 thoughts that jumped out at me, which one we've touched on, is that I looked at the clock, or whatever you call it, as 1 minute 47 into this track. I was like, geez, they've packed a lot into 1 minute 47, and there's still another like minute and a half to go. And I did have that thought. This and 4 movements. I thought if I had to show someone Gintis, it'd probably be these 2.
Well, the strange thing about those things, kind of, sounded like that, is, and like you say, like there being so much they're still fairly short songs.
But yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, that's exactly
a big thing of mine as well, is that I really, really always want every song to come in at under 3 minutes if I can, because that's just what I just like, songs that are under 3 minutes. I just, I get bored, I guess. So that's why all of our albums are pretty short, and even though there's a lot going on, they're actually quite short songs.
That's brilliant. I love it.
But the Crystal Lake, I think the reason I chose this is because, first of all, the band formed because of this song. So Dave Gintis, who is no longer in the band, but he's still in the WhatsApp group. We formed the band when we were 15 or 16. We were around our friend's house drinking some beers, and this came on MTV2, and we went, this is great. And then we went, shall we form a band? And that was it. And then we went and bought a keyboard from Cash Converters and a guitar, and tried to start writing some songs. And then there's arpeggiating keyboards all the way through this. And
yes, I can see that. Very Grandaddy, yeah.
Keyboards, and that's a tip of the hat to Grandaddy, and particularly this song. So here's The Crystal Lake by Grandaddy.
Cars are fake and dogs are dead, with broken hearts collapsing by the coffee carts, the crystal lake. It only laughs, it knows you're just a modern man. It's shining like a chandelier, shining somewhere far away from here. I gotta get out of 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 here. And find my way again. I've lost my way again.
Blind date with the chancer, we had oysters and dry lancers, and the check when it arrived, we went Dutch, 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 Dutch. A redder shade of neck on a whiter shade of trash, and this emery board is giving me a rash. I'm flat out, you're so beautiful to look at when you cry. Freeze, don't move. Been chosen as an extra in the movie adaptation of the sequel to your life. A shady lane, everybody wants one. A shady lane, everybody needs one. Oh my God, 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 oh your God, oh his God, oh her God. Everybody's got it, everybody's got it, everybody's got it, everybody's got the worlds collide. But all that we want is a shady lane. Glance, don't stare. Soon you're being told to recognize your heirs. No, not me. I'm an island of such great complexity. Stress surrounds in the muddy, peaceful center of this town. Tell me off in the hotel but he's got the worlds collide. But all that I want is a shady lane.
So that was The Crystal Lake by Grandaddy from the classic, the Software Slump. That is one for the ages, isn't it? And then we also played Shady Lane by Pavement, which I've said before, Pavement aren't a band I know a lot about, but the more I hear, the more I'm like, oh yeah, I can see where they slot into the Gintis world.
Yeah, so I think it's I picked it just purely because it was it's probably my favorite Pavement song, and they're a band that all of us absolutely love and always have since we were in high school, and that's it. So they've been a real influence throughout the entirety of Gintis, just because I I started writing songs when I was listening to these bands, so they're just in there, whatever.
Yeah.
But they're also, it's quite nice actually that it often gets picked up on by people when they talk about, like, oh, you sound like this. They tend to say Pavement and they tend to say Gorky's, and I'm absolutely I'm fine with that because I love both them bands. So yeah,
but it's again, and I know I'm biased because I absolutely love Gintis, but I think that's where the magic comes from. It's not too much of one or the other. It's not like a blatant Pavement rip-off, or it's not a blatant, oh, you're trying to be Gorky's. I think that's where the magic happens.
They're influences, aren't they? They're not.
Absolutely. We're
not ripping them off. They're influences. And and Kyle as well, absolute master of that kind of guitar, kind of wonky guitar playing, which is just so hard to do. It's so hard to do that well. And like when I watch Kyle play, and I'm just like, fuck, that's so good. He's so good at it. He's so good at it.
And Dennis is a great example of that. Having that, like that harsh, like to have the harsh. I don't know how would you describe it. Chugging that solo, it's fantastic against this really poppy melody. I
think that song in particular, like his guitar work and that song just blows my mind. It's so good.
That's why Gintis is so fantastic. So the next track, because moving on now, is right. I've got to get me pronunciation. Sentimental Songs for Sad Song Singers. That's beautiful. Tell us more.
Sentimental Songs for Sad Song Singers. It kind of that was almost the title of the album.
Okay.
Because I think that sums up what they are. This song I wrote on an acoustic guitar, as you can tell, because it's so short. It's still another one of those which was initially just half a song, but we decided to not shoehorn any other songs onto the end of it.
So this is all you. This one, is it?
Well, no. So what happened was, I wrote it on an acoustic guitar, but I can't play piano. And I thought. Right. And I always thought this will sound much better on piano.
Okay.
So I took it round to Joe's house. I think it's just Joe and me that play on this. So worked out on piano. Joe worked out on piano, and then he also played the melodica as well, and then did some vocal harmonies, and that's largely that. And then I always kind of knew that it kind of has a similar chord progression to this song that I'm going to play now, which is the absolute classic "You Were Always on My Mind" by Elvis Presley.
I've never noticed that. Right, okay, well, let's keep our ears out for
We'll
this.
see if you can hear it. I can.
Maybe I didn't treat you quite as good as I should have. Maybe I didn't love you quite as often as I could have. Little things I should have said and done, I just never took the time. You were always on my mind. Always on my mind. You were always on my mind. Maybe I didn't hold you all those lonely, lonely times. And I guess I never told you I'm so happy that you're mine. If I made you feel second best, girl, I'm so sorry I was blind. You were always on my mind. You were always on my mind. Tell me that your sweet love hasn't died. Give me one more chance to keep you satisfied, satisfied. Little things I should have said and done, I just never took the time. You were always on my mind. Always on my mind. You were always on my mind. You were always on my mind. Maybe I didn't treat you quite as good as I should have. Maybe I didn't love you quite as often as I could have. Maybe I didn't hold you all those lonely, lonely times. And I guess I never told you I'm so happy that you're mine. Maybe I didn't treat you quite as good as I should have.
I think we're a bit taken aback there by the raw emotion of Elvis, the Willie Nelson classic, always on my mind. And that's as the song was playing, Carl and I were saying it's an absolutely heartbreaking song, but it's an incredibly vulnerable song for the male. And you know, I probably could over egg this point, but you know, the sentimental songs for sad song singers, I mean, there is a vulnerability in your lyrics, Carl, isn't there? And I'm just kind of wondering how much, without ever veering into like the saccharine or you know the maudlin, is that a conscious thing? How do you walk that line between vulnerability and just plain like daftness?
Yeah, that's just how I like music. It's just, you know, honest without being cloying. Is you know,
Right.
I think that with any of the music that I really, really love, it's about being honest, isn't it? And
Yeah.
often when you and but just about being real. And I think that, you know, it's kind of that's it. I remember I interviewed Aidan Moffat once for Beatle and I talked to him about that, and he was like, and I think that he described it as something like not acting the wank. But I think that the point is that you know, things aren't, you know, with you kind of things aren't always about like big love songs. It's just about being honest, isn't it? But
Yeah.
often the people that make some of the most heartbreaking music also have a really, really good sense of humor as well. So I think that the two things marry quite well. So you know, there's a daftness to a lot of the stuff, and there's a pettiness to a lot of the stuff that I write as well. But ultimately, it's just about being honest, really.
Yeah,
That's it, and that's it. And it's just that's just the music that I listen to, and the music that I like. So it's just, I don't know. It's just, yeah, it's hard to explain, isn't it? But
it is. Yeah. But I think it's.
I get it. I think that's. But the thing is that I would like to think that if you know, if you met me as a person, then that's kind of what I'm like. I'm a bit daft and I am a bit sentimental, and yeah, that's it, you know.
Yeah. Oh, well, there we go. I mean, I can agree with that. Yeah.
But also, I must say, Elvis. I got onto Elvis like he wasn't, you know, like I'd never heard of him before at this point. But Kyle is such a big Elvis fan, and obviously when Kyle and I started hanging out when we were like 16, I was getting him into Grandaddy and Pavement and stuff, and he was going, have you heard Elvis? and I was just like, not really, like, you know. And then he played me some stuff, and then I was just like, right, and now I own pretty much everything that Elvis has ever done because it's just so great. Like, yeah. So I have Kyle to thank for that.
Well, nothing surprises anymore with all these influences. So we're gonna play one last track for this episode.
Yeah.
And I don't know this at all. So can you tell me a bit about this and why it comes into sentimental songs?
Yeah. So this is like a really short piano song by a guy called McCarthy Trenching. It's in here for sentimental songs because it is a sentimental song, and it's a piano song, and it's really short. But my friend Paul, my friend and yours, Paul Christensen,
yes.
showed me this song. And when I looked at it on like Spotify, so I don't know much about him. He's an American guy, but it's not like, you know, his plays on Spotify are not really any different to, you know, ours.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's a huge deal, but fuck me, this song is incredible. And but also I could have picked it for Malcontent as well, because he also says in the lyrics, your worries won't kill you, but it sounds like you hope so. Which I also basically nicked wholesale. You get to see this a lot, is that I listen to the songs, I like lyrics, and then I just use the same lyric, basically. It's fine. I think it's because we haven't really sold any records, and it's not really an issue, but but that's it. But the song is called To an Aesthete Dying Young, which is a fucking great title.
Fantastic.
It's just
it is,
beautiful song. So
we're going to play that in a sec. Carl, thanks for joining us. So that's going to wrap up episode 1 of this deep dive. So we're 4 songs in, so we've got another 2 episodes. Really appreciate you taking the time to do this, Carl. We are going to be doing this live. We're going to be having a Q&A with Joe and Carl, and special guest Astles, and a few more very special guests, which we'll announce. We've got the date booked. It's going to be in May. It's going to be in Prohibition Studios in Liverpool, 12th of May, and we're going to do this live, and it's going to be lovely. It's going to be sentimental. It's going to be daft. It's going to be everything you'd want from Gintis.
Well, we're actually going to, so it's going to be a little bit different that night. So Joe and I are going to play a couple of songs on piano. Yeah, which we never ever do and never have done before. So yeah,
and then there's going to be a bit of a deep dive Q&A session talking about more about the germination of the records and kind of the what went into it. But we'll be back for episode 2 and 3, which we're gonna make available to the Patreon subscribers. So if you've liked this episode and you want to hear the rest of it, please go to www.patreon.com/Club Shipwrecked and subscribe to this. There's different options available, but any option will get you access to the next episodes of the Gintis deep dive. And just thank you for listening. And if you subscribe, thank you. It's not a profit. God knows it's not a for profit. Anything we make on the Patreon goes into putting events like the Q&A on. So that's my hard sell. Carl, thanks for joining us, mate. It's been absolutely fantastic. And yeah, man, do you want to lead us into this last track?
Thanks so much. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Nice one, mate. And as ever, until next time, diddly I.
Cheers, mate. Diddly I.
From a rundown house on Douglas Street, I can hear the train whistle long and loud, and the metal smell from the casting plant drifts in on the wind, a poison cloud, as the moon scores a field goal through the steeples of the cathedral. I lie in bed, but I can't sleep, so I'm writing you this letter. I hope it will find you better than when we last spoke, 'cause the East Coast does not seem to suit you, my friend. Those professors will only pollute your brain. So stick to your room, stay out of the rain, and practice your piano or frail your banjo. It's alright to spend a little time at your local. Your worries won't kill you, though it sounds like you hope so. Yours truly, as always, your friend. I'll sing it again. You should practice your piano or frail your banjo. It's alright to spend a little time at your local. Your worries won't kill you, though it sounds like you hope so. Yours truly, as always, your friend.